Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Live from the Blue Seats. I am not Rob. I will never be Rob. Rob is just a figment of our imagination. No, Rob is doing family stuff, so he is not with us tonight. And I'm here, producer JL, as you can recall. I'm here with Dave. You might know him as Dave. Dave, how are you?
So I'm good. I have a bone to pick with you influencers on Instagram that you make your videos, and then for some unknown reason, whenever you're making fun of somebody or somebody does something stupid, there's always a guy named Dave. Why is that? Like it's always and then Dave decided to take a spoonful of mayo and just eat it. Like really? What? Why can't it be like Chad or something?
Um,
I have this bone to pick because whenever this comes up, my wife sends me these reels, and it's always a Dave for some reason. I don't know why.
I, I think your wife is selectively choosing these to torment you, Dave.
She is Russian, so that does check out.
That's fair. You
They
know, I
do know how
mean,
to manipulate social media very well.
they do. Yes, you know, you might have to check if the KGB is still a thing. Look at me as insinuating that this guy's wife is a traitor to the United States.
She's not a traitor to the United States. She just loves to mess with me, which, in all fairness, I kind of have earned the the messing with
Oh, so
the torture, the torment.
when she does it is endearing, but when I do it, it's annoying.
Well, she actively has sex with me, so yes.
Well, I wasn't gonna go there, Dave, but
She procreated with me twice. I think that she's allowed a certain leeway here.
you just had to take it to something else that I wasn't.
You're the one that started it. I'm the one that ended it. This is the lesson I'm
Oh,
teaching my girls. Don't start it, finish it.
oh my gosh. Well, I guess I guess that's fair, but sure.
There's that
Um,
lesson, and there's the no is a complete sentence lesson. It is. No is a complete sentence. You don't
it
owe
is,
an
it is.
explanation to anybody. No, walk
Yes,
away.
I
They're
I
4 and 2, so they got time.
that, boy, we're off to a rip and roaring start here.
Parenting 101 with the guy who runs a Rangers blog. Yeah, this is the guy you want to take parenting advice from.
I mean, from all intents and purposes, you don't
Your
come off as a
voice
terrible
jumped
father.
9 octaves when you said
Yes, it
that.
did. I know, right? For all intents and purposes, you don't come off as a terrible father, so I'll give you that.
Thank you. I
I'll gi I'll
appreciate that. Thank you.
I'll give you that much.
I do appreciate that. Thank you. I don't think I'm a bad dad. My kids love me. My wife says I'm a good dad. My mom says I'm a good dad, but I don't really. I feel like all moms supposed to say that, so I'm not entirely
I
sure if
think
that
so.
matters.
I think so. But I don't know that yet. I don't have kids yet. I want to have kids.
That
I
you know of.
uh, well, no, okay.
It is a greater than 0% chance for any male who has had sex at least once that they may have a kid that they don't know of.
I could I could,
It's just how it works.
I could confidently say with my past that I don't have a child.
Fair enough.
Catch my drift. Anyways, all right. Well, enough about that. All right. Well, enough about me being chronically single. There's hockey to talk about apparently. And also we'll get to your questions as well. Um, so obviously it's the summer months, and not that we don't have things to talk about, but there's certainly sort of a lack of things to discuss. But we thank you guys who are listening to this podcast who give us fantastic questions, and there's one that we're going to visit when we get to
Oh
the
my god.
questions that we really
Greatest
do
question ever.
appreciate. That so basically this question falls in line with the fact that Dave has terrible food takes. So it just kind of, this is a very good question, and the person that posted this on the blog post, you are a champion and a scholar, and I cannot wait to kind of get into it. But we do have hockey to talk about, um, outside of Dave's terrible food takes. So free agency, right? We're going through the process right now. It's technically open right now in 2025, and it seems as if pretty much the Rangers have kind of filled their quota for this offseason with, Gavrikov, Radish, and name other players signed here. Um, but we're not going to talk about this year's free agent class. We're going to talk about next season's free agent class. Now, we all know next year is, right now at least, next season's free agent class is going to be full of superstars. So, just to name a few, you have obviously Artemi Panarin, you have Connor McDavid, Sergei Bobrovsky, Jack Eichel, Alex Ovechkin, Kirill Kaprizov, Kale McCarr, Jacob Trouba, John Carl, Jason Robertson, Kyle Connor, Ryan McDonough, Anze Kopitar, Martin Necas. I mean, there, Evgeny Malkin. There are a ton of names out there for teams to really bulk up on. Now, generally speaking, between now and next summer, some of those guys end up coming through on team friendly deals, or they resign, and maybe some of them actually sort of, leave their team. But, you know, usually what ends up happening is between now and the summer of next year is some players will get locked up, some players will end up retiring. Like, for example, I'll say this, although Ovechkin's contract does run out for the Washington Capitals, I think he is done in the NHL. He has the NHL goal scoring record, and I think he wants to finally wind it down, go back to Russia, play in the KHL with his hometown team to kind of ride off into the sunset, similar to what Yager wanted to do at some point when he left the Rangers and went back to Russia, and then he did it again when he left the NHL to go play for Kladno, the team that he owns. So I guess just kind of starting off, if and then from this we can transition into how the kids factor into all this, because it kind of does come, together at some point, because it definitely delves into what exactly the Rangers want to do. So next off season is big for the Rangers and just for the NHL in general. If everything were to stay the same, Dave, and all of those players seem to hit the market, what does it look like from a Rangers standpoint in terms of? Now, mind you, the Rangers should have at least about 30 million in cap, if I'm remembering the number correctly.
Yeah, it's like 25 to 30 in that time
25
frame.
to 30 million for next offseason. So what obviously we've talked about this at length before, but I guess just to give your thoughts again on it, what exactly should they do?
It is, to me. So let me back up. Are we answering this on the premise that all of these guys hit free agency,
Ye-
or are we
Yes.
answering it on the
No.
all if
That's
all of them hit
all
it?
the guys. Yes.
Oh God,
That's
okay. That changes my answer. If everybody hits free agency, you have to find a way to dump Zibanejad, and quite frankly, you have to find a way to dump JT Miller.
interesting. What makes you say that?
Because you need the roster space to sign somebody, say like Connor McDavid and or Jack Eichel, and they are both younger than Zibanejad and Miller, so you're getting younger and you're getting better. And who were the other? There was another center. So let's say they get one of McDavid or Eichel, that replaces essentially JT Miller. Then you have to replace Zibanejad, and I was drawing a blank on some of the other centers you listed.
Well, you got Kopitar, Martin Necas. I mean,
Natchez.
you really,
Natchez is a
well,
center? I thought he was a winger.
he's listed as a center.
No shit.
You can try to go Evgeny Malkin if you want.
No.
If that's something you're into, you
Nope.
know.
Nope. Okay, let's go with Nietzsche, who's 28, and McDavid, who I believe is also 28. I should probably look these up. That would make a lot more sense for me to do.
Yes,
McDavid
David.
is 28, turning 29 in January, and Natchez is on. Yeah, he's still in Carolina, right? Or was he one of the guys that they shipped off?
He is on Colorado.
Colorado. So he is one of the guys that they shipped off. Okay.
Yes.
Natchez is listed as all three positions. According to cap wages, he did not spend any time at center last season. But he's 26, so he's turning 27, which means let's just assume he's a center for the sake of this conversation. You dump Zibanejad, you dump Miller, you let Panarin walk, and you sign those two guys. That's your plan. But this assumes all of them hit free agency, which does change how you approach things. You have, if they do, you have to get rid of your 33-year-old players and get better younger players. You can't look me in the eye and tell me Miller's better than McDavid and Zibanejad is better than Natchez. You can't.
Well, I'll say this. Um, I think they're gonna try and make it work if and keep JT Miller. I think with the way just that the way that Drury has kind of gone about uh dealing with the roster, and also just the way that he's tied up, I don't want to say tied up, but kind of signed a lot of the rest of the defensive core to those team friendly deals. Even the Will Cooley deal was, basically a steal. Um, I think that they keep one of Miller or Zibanejad, which I think they're leaning towards keeping Miller, so to speak. And then with potentially Brad coming off the books, even though who knows what's going to happen with that, because there's some sort of talk that, well, then again, it comes from Frank Saravalli, so don't really know how true it is. Um, but
Yeah.
but there's some, I guess, I think my Kevin Weeks might have mentioned this at one point, but there's potentially some sort of thing in place where they might want to keep Panarin to sign him to a cheaper deal, 3-year contract, whatever it is. That remains to be seen.
Right, but
Uh,
that's also under the that they're all of this is based on the understanding that not all these guys are heading to free agency. The
right,
the caveat here was we're answering based off of everybody hitting free
right,
agency, which is not
yeah,
realistic.
no, but I mean, it. My thing though is that I think with at least a couple of those names, I do, and look, I could be wrong in the next couple of months, but I do think one of Eichel or McDavid makes it to free agency. My assumption is that it's going to be Eichel, just judging off of personality and judging off of the way that each individual is, at least with McDavid and Mc,
McDavid.
Mc, McDavid. Yeah, put a sock
So,
down.
did you just like merge Jack Eichel and Connor
I just,
McDavid into
I
McDavid?
just, I did. I just AI generated my own response. Um,
Okay,
um,
okay, Chad GPT.
the joke behind that is that Dave and I share these really terribly put AI photos of like cartoons and things, and The
Mostly The
Simpsons,
Simpsons.
mostly The Simpsons. So they have messed up names, so that's where that comes from. Anyways, so I'm going off of the assumption that one of Eichel or McDavid is going to get to free agency. I think McDavid resigns in Edmonton, although something kind of inside of me says to me that he may want to take the money. Um, because then again, when Gretzky got traded, anyone will leave anywhere they can go. No one is going to stay really in one spot anymore these days. It's kind of hard to see, you know. Um, so that just tells me that one of those guys is. I think Jack Eichels. He's going to want the money, especially considering he had his neck surgery. It's kind of a ticking time bomb if you think about it, for at least his age and the type of player that he is. So you would assume that he's probably going to want the best deal possible. He's won a cup. McDavid hasn't won a cup yet, but it also depends on how McDavid wants to extend his loyalties to Edmonton. Does he want to have to go through that process again? Edmonton has a very good team. They have a good coach in Chris Knobloch. Does McDavid want to stay there and be the guy, or does he leave and chase the money to be the guy somewhere else? And look, there's nothing wrong with him wanting to stay to the team that drafted him because he's experienced success. It would be a different story if McDavid had stayed in Edmonton and they had no success whatsoever, which it kind of seemed like it was looking that way up until a certain point. And then you could also say the same thing about Jack Eichel before he got traded to the Vegas Golden Knights. It seemed as if Eichel was going to stay his contract out in Buffalo and end up going somewhere else, except he forced the trade elsewhere. So, out of the two, I think Eichel makes it. Um, I guess in the sense of the off season, I think what they end up doing next year, if everyone goes to free agency, or I'll even throw the caveat that one of McDavid or Eichel ends up making it to market, is they sign one of the other tier free agents, similar to like a McDonough or maybe another winger that they can use for depth purposes, and then they attempt to go after one of the two. They trade Zibanejad, they keep JT Miller, and I think that they make a play for Jason Robertson because he's listed there as well. You know, now how much is that going to cost? Who knows? Cap's going up, but I think Panarin gets replaced by Robertson. Zibanejad gets moved, and McDavid ends up taking that space, and then you have a center core of McDavid, Trocheck, Miller, and Carrick. Not in that order, of course, but obviously Miller would be your second center, Trocheck would be your third C, which is what you and Rob seem to kind of agree on. Although I think Rob would kind of flip flop Zibanejad and Trocheck in that aspect. Um, so, but then again, it also depends on how much money they have. Now, could it be that the Rangers locked up their decor to a degree in order to give themselves that freedom? It remains to be seen how they play this year. But I think, though, with just kind of those big names, I think one of the two makes it to free agency. Now, I'm just going to look through the list again. So obviously, Sergei Bobrovsky is another big name. Obviously, the Rangers don't need a goaltender, but that is a pretty big name, so to speak. He's currently making $10 million on the market right now, and he is basically 38 years old. So some team will overpay him for a couple of years. Panarin, if he doesn't come back to the Rangers, I think will end up going to another big market team for a pretty lesser cost. Maybe he returns to Chicago, or maybe he ends up going down to Florida. One of the interesting names I see here, though, is Kirill Kaprizov. Now,
He's
this
gonna
isn't
resign. That's right. That's why they're dicking around with Marco Rossi because
Marco
they
Rossi.
yeah he's gonna resign.
I'll say this. That's one that I kind of expect. If again, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I could, be way off here because it is only July 24th to this episode to be released on the 25th, of course. But something tells me that Bill Guerin, I don't know what's telling me this, but just going off of the Marco Rossi situation, it kind of seems like, well, then again, they are two different types of players, so maybe I'm totally off base on this. If anyone who is a little bit more familiar with the Minnesota Wild can tell me if I'm wrong or not. But I just have this weird instinct that uh Garen's gonna play a hard bargain because he's Russian. That kind of seems to be sort of a theme with the way the Team USA management operates outside of their Olympic duties. And maybe I'm just basing this assumption off of the fact that Chris Drury has had tough dealings with Russians in the past, although he seems to have a decent relationship with Panarin and Shesterkin. Um, but I always just assume that all those guys are cut from the same cloth. So I just think that they all have similar interests and prospects in terms of how they want their teams ran, especially considering with how both those guys played in the NHL. They seem to have dead set a certain mindset of what they see their team having. Now, you might be right. He's probably going to resign. He's currently making 9 mil right now. He's definitely going to make at least 10, 11 mil. He's worth it. He is that type of player. He is essentially Artemi Panarin, just a left-handed shot. Um, I think he's a slightly better skater. I'll say that. But they're very similar in terms of play style. Now, Jacob Trouba is a free agent as well. I'm gonna assume that we're not gonna want to revisit that. Um, but his contract ends at the end of next year. and he can go and by the time his wife's residency runs out, he can go and they can go wherever they want. Another interesting name here that I see, which he'll probably end up re-signing too, but it's definitely interesting to see this here. It's Kyle Connor. Now, Kyle Connor, according to this here, is making about 7 and change. He's a left-handed shot left winger for the Winnipeg Jets. Interesting to see how that turns out. He is a UFA. So
They
do
just
you
cut
think,
Ehlers loose, so they did that to re-sign Connor.
I figured that. And I think Connor is the better player as much as I think Ehlers is good. I think Connor is the better player, but I mean, you never really know at Winnipeg though, because it seems as if uh it seems as if they're allergic to making some decent decisions, but then again, at the end of the day, though, they've put together a really solid team.
I
The
mean,
further down,
I don't think any of these guys make it to free agency. Well, I mean, I don't think any of the big names, McDavid, Eichel, Robertson, Connor, none of these guys are making it to free agency. That's
well,
my take on all of this, like my realistic take on it.
obviously, one of the big names out there that could probably not make it to free agency as well is Cale Makar. I don't think Colorado's going to want to let him walk. I think that's
He's
going to
not. No, he's a big name. He's not making it to free agency.
yeah. Although it would that's the thing about the NHL though that kind of annoys me to a degree. While it's worked out for the Rangers in many regards with keeping a lot of their star players, there seems to be this sort of thing where these guys like to stay put. For obvious reasons, of course, because these guys are, at least hockey players relative to players in other sports. They're a little bit more selfless in the sense that they want to stick around um, in certain aspects. So I don't think Makar makes it. Like I said earlier, I think Ovechkin retires and goes back to Russia. Shea Weber's contract ends up running out, so he will be off the hook for the Chicago Blackhawks. Obviously, he is unable to play due to his injuries, so he's taken a front office role, I think, in Montreal. I can't remember, but another interesting name here is Trevor Zegras. He will be an RFA. He's currently making 5.750 for the Philadelphia Flyers. Depending on how next season goes, I think he gets scooped up in an offer sheet somewhere. Then you have Adrian Kempe, Oliver Bjorkstrand, Vladimir Tarasenko, and Jordan Eberle. So the more I go down the list, Mason Marchment's also going to be available. He's a UFA on the Seattle Kraken.
He's
So,
27.
and Mason Marchment.
Jesus.
Mason
Oh, I am
Marchment's
old.
Mason Marchment's 31.
He's 31.
Mason Marchment's 31.
What
Yes.
the fuck,
Well,
man?
he'll be 31, I think, at the end of next season. So, um, so I'm.
I am old.
Oh boy, why? What makes you
So
think that? Why? Do you remember when he came up? I remember when he came up.
yes, I do. Oh, Jesus. I can't do this shit anymore.
He's
Anyway, I don't think any of these guys make it, and I think the Rangers planning around it is silly. And I don't think they were planning around it. I think JT Miller fell into their laps, and that took them out of anything realistic with Eichel and McDavid. Even though I think they're both re-signing.
That's fair.
And
Although
PSA for everybody who's writing this online, RE dash signing is re-signing. RESIGNING
is resigning.
is resigning as in quitting. All right.
Yeah.
The Rangers resigned last year. The Rangers
Yes.
re-signed Will Cooley this summer.
Mm-hmm.
English 101. Sorry, that's one thing that really gets me.
Yes. No, I agree 100%. I'm a bit of a grammar I'm a
That's
bit
not
of
even grammar.
a
That's just English.
well, yeah, but I mean, syntax and diction and but
Technically, grammar means English. I'm aware. Shush.
yeah, we know, David. Okay, so before we get to the questions, I guess in relation to uh just kind of the way the free agency operates and filling in spots. The Rangers have an overabundance of youth, and I think this is something that the organization has done a lot better, excuse me, over the last 10 years or so. Because if you take a look at some of the names that the Rangers had at least 10 years ago, it was not great. At least now they have players who can be solid NHLers. I mean, you know, what were the names were we looking at back in the day? We were excited about guys like Michael St. Croix and Christian Thomas and Danny Cristo, and Pavel Valentenko. I
Oh my
mean,
God, Pavel Valentenko! Holy crap!
now we're looking at guys like, Brennan Othman and Gabe Perreault and uh, Adam Sikora and Noah Laba and Dylan Rubarek and Brett Berard, and Will Cooley. So I guess this question to you, Dave, is so now that the Rangers have traded Kreider and there's a huge free agency coming up next year, and you can throw Alexis Lafreniere into this as well because he falls into this category. Uh, is it put up or shut up for the kids? Because if you look at the way that the roster is constructed, over the years they've been kind of blocked, but now this will be their time to shine in a sense. And with next season's free agent having some pretty decent names, not to say that the Rangers are going to immediately replace them right away, but they do have a lot of guys in the minor leagues that could really kind of take the mantle, Gabe Perreault included. Is it time for this current crop of like Othman, Berard, not really gonna throw Rempe's name in there, but sort of the higher end guys that are here now.
Schneider.
Schneider, is it time for those guys to kind of say, put up or shut up kind of thing?
So I don't consider Laugh a part of that group because he's not going anywhere. And quite frankly, 7.5 million, I think that's what it is, for his production isn't it's not great right now, but if we assume he gets more ice time, more power play time, that he's probably going to double his production under Sully probably over the next 2 or 3 years. I think he winds up as a 90-point player. And that's amazing for 7.5 million. I know that there are concerns about his skating, which they're legitimate concerns. He has worked on it, and I think he's more of the 2023, 2024 laugh than the 2024, 2025 laugh. I am basically willing to write off last season for everybody from a statistical standpoint because they were just idiots last season, for lack of a better phrase. So if you give Laugh 35, 40, 75 as his norm, peaking at 90, he stays. But I do think this is put up or shut up for, at the very least, Braden Schneider and Brennan Othman. Brett Berard, sort of, because they have Adam Sikora literally right there, and they're the exact same. They're almost the exact same player, same position, same size, same style of play. The only difference is Berard is a couple of years older. Berard is turning 23 in September, and Sikora is not even 21 yet. He turns 21 in
So
September.
so old, right?
He's been in the system for like 9 years, and he's not even 21 yet.
That's
Unbelievable.
crazy. I
He's
know.
like Filipino, actually, in that regard. Remember, Filipino
Yes.
played for the Rangers for 7 years, and he was like 25.
He was 19 when he came up.
Yep.
18, 19 years old. I remember I was there.
So I think it's more on the Othman and Schneider realm that put up or shut up, show us what you have. Othman has played 25 NHL games, 2 assists to show for it. Schneider hasn't really taken that next step, although the Rangers, again, last year were a disaster. So I think
So
with a real coach, those are the two guys that could find themselves as trade bait if they're not taking that next step. And I mean like a gigantic next step, not an incremental step. Laugh will take an incremental step. Schneider and Othman need a gigantic next step.
So I guess just in terms of evaluation purposes, what do you consider the next step for Schneider, and what do you consider the next step for Othman? Because at least with Schneider, we've seen what he can do. And I think when he's him playing with a torn labrum, I don't think that did him any favors.
That
Uh,
was
so
dumb. What is with this team? And the
I
Berard injury
and the
too. Another
Berard
torn
injury
labrum.
too, another torn labrum, you know?
God.
So I guess in that sense, though, just at least for those 2, I kinda have an idea about Othman, but I'm a little bit more curious to hear what you say about Schneider because for all intents and purposes, I think he's been fine. I don't think anyone really expected him to be sort of, this dynamo offensively, but I guess maybe there's certain things defensively that he could probably clean up on?
So lumping him with Ottman was more general because they both need to take big steps. But for Schneider, he's coming up on his third contract, and he's probably going to be in the $4.5 to $5 million range next year. You can't be paying bottom pair defensemen $4.5 to $5 million. You can't do it. They're going to be doing it with Will Borgen very shortly. And Schneider has to show that he can overtake Borgen as, at the very least, the second pair right defenseman. If he winds up on left defense, then so be it. We'll revisit this discussion then. But if he's on right defense, he has to overtake Borgen. He overtook Truba, but freaking Laviolette refused to play him. But he has to show that he can take that next step. If he's going to hit the $4 or $5 million range, he has to be a second pair defenseman, and he hasn't shown that consistently yet. But he hasn't had a defensive coach like Mike Sullivan yet. This isn't a negative on Schneider or on Ottman or on Lath. It's just they haven't had a coach that was willing to put them in these roles with significant ice time to show what they can do. Sully does that. So we'll see, I guess. But those are the guys I would look at. Schneider and Othman as the bigger trade bait. Schneider is valued around the league, by the way. Like, there's a reason
Yes.
why the Rangers have refused to keep him, to put him in bigger trades. And at some point, he needs to show the Rangers that their faith has been warranted.
I definitely can see what you're talking about, and I think just with Schneider, I think now that he has a coach that can deploy him properly, I think you know, he definitely looked decent with Laviolette that first season, you know, but I think just in terms of I think his exits can be a little bit better, and maybe that'll probably come in part of his, labrum injury, being corrected. Um, Definitely a good skater, has a great shot from the point when he needs to. So I think though with the way that Sully deals with players like him, I think he'll be okay. And I guess just with Othman, just I guess my take on it is that I just want to see a little bit more tenacity. And obviously having more time, of course, will definitely probably open up things because it's hard to evaluate a top 6 player when he's playing bottom 6 minutes. You know, he goes onto the ice for 10 seconds, puts 2 shots on goal that gets stuffed into a corner, and then he sits on the bench for another 5-10 minutes. So,
Yep.
um,
So
I
I actually have the all three zones Corey Schneider's card up for Schneider from last season.
Corey Schneider
He's
was a goalie.
no Corey Schneider, the all three zones guy, Braden Schneider, the defenseman.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you're clear.
Corey Schneider with an S and a Z, and Braden Schneider, the Rangers. All right. So interestingly enough, Schneider's Braden's zone entries are pretty solid. He gets zone entries with control very well, and that's surprising to me. He's also pretty good with defensive zone retrievals and defensive zone retrievals. We'll go with that. Um, Exits with possession are bad. Zone entry defense is abysmal. That's a problem. So actually, if zone entry defense is bad, he might look good with Carson Soucy. Carson Soucy accelerates. Jesus, I need to sleep. Excels at zone entry defense. He accelerates at zone entry defense. Guys, I was up for a while last night because my dog threw up. All right.
Hey, listen, nobody's judging you. You said it yourself.
Yeah, Carson Soucy accelerates at zone entry defense. I need to sleep.
Leave the
All
old man
right.
alone, guys. Leave him alone. See, I'm being nice to him.
I appreciate that. Thank you for not piling on when you could have. Uh, So Susie's actually really good with zone entry defense. So a Susie Schneider pairing on paper actually makes decent sense because this is also why Susie Fox worked because Susie was very good at zone entry defense and Fox was good at retrievals. Schneider is good at retrievals and terrible at zone entry defense. So that's just an interesting little tidbit. I don't know how that changes under a different coach, but I'm intrigued by that. I really am because now I'm wondering. I had been saying Scott Morrow as the right defenseman, Bruce Brainstein to the left, et cetera, et cetera. What if you do Susie Schneider second pair and you do Borgen Morrow third pair?
And then you would have Vakanainen and Robertson as your spares.
Bakanainen is your spare. Robertson, they really screwed up with that kid. I hope he's a late bloomer, but they really screwed up with that kid.
Well, I will say he looked pretty good with Adam Fox when he got a chance to play. I mean,
I
there's
would
nothing
look
wrong.
good with Adam Fox, and I was a goalie, and not a good one.
Well, David, let me finish. Um, when he wasn't with Adam Fox, and I guess this is just going off of what I saw. Then again, I'm no pro scout, but I thought he looked fine out there. I mean, he looked a little overmatched at the start when he first came on, like when he first started playing. But I mean, that's natural to happen to anyone playing in their first couple of NHL shifts. But I thought he definitely looked a lot better. I think with Robertson being a bit steadier on the back end, um, kind of allowed the Rangers to let Zach Jones walk. Now, I guess, and again, this is no slight to Zach Jones. Everybody knows that I was a big fan of his. I still am. But considering the Rangers just kind of let him walk and nobody really took a serious flyer on him, I guess kind of speaks volumes. Because look, the Buffalo Sabres are the Buffalo Sabres. You can't take that organization seriously. So, and that's not a slight to Jones, but they need people. You would think that if the Rangers were making a huge game-breaking mistake with Zach Jones, that he would have been picked up by a team that wasn't Buffalo, if
I
that
don't
makes any sense.
necessarily agree with you right here because why would a team pay a premium for a guy that doesn't command a premium?
But at the same time, but then again, if they're going to, if teams see that Jones is this real, valuable commodity. And not to say that he's not. He's probably going to do really well in Buffalo, I'd say, even though that whole organization is a tire fire. But the point I'm trying to make is that I don't think the loss of Jones is going to hurt them as much, especially with getting Morrow now. I don't think the loss of Jones will constitute this sort of, fear of missing out sort of thing like a lot of people are having with Neil Pionk. And maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe in the next couple of months, he becomes his Norris style defenseman in
Oh,
Buffalo.
okay.
Maybe.
I'm gonna take your Robertson thing and kind of blow it up if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead. That's what we're here for.
He played 2 games with the Rangers.
Yes, he
Robertson,
did.
30 minutes and 43 seconds of 5-on-5 time with Adam Fox. 2 minutes and 13 seconds without. So the 2 minutes and 13 seconds don't count. They put up, a 52.94% shot share, which is
Not
fine,
terrible.
not terrible. They, you know, were on the ice for 3 goals for, one against, pretty good. Their expected goals for percent together, 35.42. Their high danger chances together, 36.36. They shot 25%. Obviously, this is a wildly small sample. 2 games is nowhere near enough to measure somebody, but if they're looking for a steady defensive presence, Robertson hasn't shown it. And I really hope that all of this is just when he played. The Rangers were a train wreck. They had given up at this point. The team, actually, they were winning those games. Now that I remember, think about it, they were winning those games.
Yeah, but they were kind of phoning it in at some point though,
Yeah.
because I think if I remember correctly, Robertson's first game was against the Islanders. And I think they played while he was still in the race, but while they were still in the race, but you could kind of tell that they were still phoning it in. But I guess just the point that I'm trying to make though is that, and this is purely, I guess, I don't want to say not as statistical, it's maybe more anecdotal than anything, is that he got on the ice, he didn't look like a train wreck. He didn't look like Lindgren out there. He didn't look like Truba out there, who they were looking like they were lost. Didn't look like Miller on certain occasions. He was fine. It wasn't, mind blowing off the screen, but he also wasn't a complete tire fire. Is where I'm trying to base that. Maybe I should be more specific when I
Yeah.
talk. I guess that would help.
Yes, we live in, well, I shouldn't say that. We live in a generalization world now, but specificity matters.
In a generalization world, I'm a generalization
Nope, you're done.
girl
Nope,
in
nope,
a
nope,
generalization
nope,
world.
nope, you're
I
done.
tried.
You're
I
done.
tried
No,
to.
no, the listeners don't want to hear you sing the same way they don't want to hear me sing, so quit while you're behind.
I'm a generation girl in
Okay,
a
I'm gonna quote The
generalization
Simpsons.
world.
Dig up, stupid. Dig up.
Dig up, stupid. Dig up. All right. So with that being said, let's get the questions.
You want to do the blue sky one first, and then we'll get to
I
the site
I
questions?
I will do the blue sky one first. Yes. So, as you know, we reach out for questions on social media, Blue Sky, and on Twitter. Uh, Please, if you don't send them on the site, feel free to send them on Blue Sky. Feel free to send them on Twitter. You know, we're you know we're back on the saddle, folks. Especially
Not a we. You are running the Twitter one. I do blue sky.
well, I also post on the Blue
Well,
Sky.
yeah. I sorry. You do both accounts. I'm no longer on Twitter.
Yeah.
Fuck Elon Musk.
Correct. All right. So this first question comes on Blue Sky. This comes from dsam at dsam1921.bsky.social. This is actually a really good question. I saw this get submitted earlier, and I actually really like this one. It says, should we actually think Sullivan will implement a system that uses both power play units effectively, or do you feel it will still be more of the same with power play one getting the lion's share again? Then they say, could guys like Perot, Othman, and Morrow making the team be actual reasons for Sullivan to just not default?
This is a good
That's
question.
that's a really good question. Thank you, DSAM.
That's
DSAM.
a great question.
That's an awesome question.
So I could go semantics and say David Quinn's probably going to run the power play the same way he did when he was the head coach of the Rangers, but moving that aside for a second. Uh, I think a lot of it depends on what power play one looks like without Chris Kreider. If Will Cooley comes in and just says, you know what, screw it, I can take that role and owns it and does it, I can see the exact same thing happening. I really can. But I can't see JT Miller and Alexi Lafreniere not getting any power play time whatsoever. So it's such a difficult question to answer. I'm gonna go safe route and say power play one. The entire power play is gonna get shaken up, and we're gonna have a power play one that consists of Panarin in the Zibanejad spot, Laugh in the Panarin spot, Miller as the bumper, Cooley up front, and Fox as your quarterback. Power play two, I'm going to get a little crazy on. Power play 2, if Morrow does not make the team, either Fox goes the full 2 or they run 5 forwards. And I actually need to pull up cap wages so I don't screw this up. We're Zibanejad, Trocheck. I would expect Othman
I would
at the
hope.
very least. I would
I
hope
would hope. I
Othman.
would
Yeah,
hope.
I would hope Othman. I don't think Perot makes the team. I am going to go out on a limb here and say Brett Berard is also going to be on the power play. I think he can be an absolute pest in front of the net, kind of like Sean Avery. Remember, Sean Avery was like 5'9" or something, or 5'10". So he's not that much. Avery was not much taller than Brett Berard is now, and he was a pain in front of the net. They created rules for Avery.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Zibanejad, Trocheck, Ottman, Berard. I wouldn't be shocked if Adam Edstrom winds up in some capacity on the power play.
I can see that. I
I can
guess
see
that makes
that.
sense because he's a big
I
body.
can see
He can move the
Berard
puck
as,
well.
yeah. And for that, I would have Trocheck and Zibanejad in the spots. Berard on the other wing, on the right wing, that he would not be on his off wing there, but we've seen that doesn't necessarily matter. Berard's get a nice shot. Edstrom would be in front at that point, and then pick somebody up top. I can
Yeah,
see Schneider making it up top too if it's not Morrow.
uh, yeah. I mean, I never.
Schneider's offensive numbers, at least through all 3 zones, aren't terrible. He
Yeah,
has much more puck moving than I think all of us ever gave him credit for.
I don't see it, but I don't know.
It's not
Maybe I'm.
it's not my preference, but like power play 2 really gets thin quickly.
So I think though, with just off of what Sullivan could do, and again, this is all you know conjecture really. Like we have to wait until at least preseason to kind of see, or at least the first couple of games of the year to kind of take a guesstimate on what exactly he'll do. Um, but my guess though, and I think this has been sort of an issue with the last 2 coaches, is um the only time the only time that somebody got it right was when Gerard Gallant, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Gerard Gallant actually split the top heavy power play units when he had Tarasenko and Kane, and actually had 2 balanced units. And the problem that we would see, especially with Laviolette, and look, I can't blame Laviolette or Gallant for doing what they did because at least at the time, every one of those people on the power play were effective. When both those guys got the teams that they were able to inherit, the power play was not an issue. It really was not. So I definitely understand why they would keep it top heavy in the sense that, okay, well, you're not going to change anything. But I think going forward, though, I think Sullivan, at least I hope he does, will balance it out a little bit. And, you know, if power play 1 ends up not having a strong entry into the zone, and you just swap them right out. They get in, if they enter the zone and they have a couple seconds of possession and they don't do it, you swap them out. And that was always the problem. A lot of the issues also came from giving up these shorthanded goals because they were tired. So uh, we have a question on Twitter. I just saw this. This comes from Kevin at Spozo211. Thank you, Kevin,
Oh, hey,
for
Spozo.
thank you for listening and for your question. He asks, everyone keeps talking about the 26 free agent class. Is it smart for them to limit any possible in-season moves because of what could be available next summer? Well, definitely on
Absolutely
that.
not. I am on record.
No.
It is dumb to base your entire plan off of things that likely aren't going to happen. Look at what the 2025 free agent class was supposed to be before everybody started
Mm.
re-signing. The
Mm-hmm.
same thing is going to happen, especially as soon as we hear about a $105 million cap ceiling.
Yeah. Nope, I agree. We definitely elaborated on that earlier on in the podcast. So no, I don't think that they should base their moves off of what goes on next summer because like you mentioned, everything can be locked up before December. And so now you have to kind of figure out what are you going to do. So all right. So now on to the questions onto the blog. So
All right, can I read?
I'm good.
Are you reading these or am I reading these? I think we should leave
I'll
that specific one for last.
Yes, I was gonna agree with that. We'll leave that. Okay. So just to kind of give you a bit of a teaser. So
No, 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 no,
um,
no teaser, no teaser. This is the teaser. We're saving it for last.
we're
That's
saving
it.
this question for last. Okay.
Because
All
there's the greatest question I've ever seen ever,
right.
and then possibly the greatest follow-up I have ever seen.
Yes, we'll get to that. That's all I'm gonna say. All right. So this specific question comes from RJCY, and he says, Dave, do the Rangers have enough quote unquote jam with this roster? If not, what should they do to get some more? No, since he addressed it to you, you answer it.
Okay. I think jam is an overrated term that got popular when Torts still was the coach, and they had at the time Jonathan Audi Marchessault, who fit everything with jam because of the initials too, and it kind of blew up from
I
there.
hated that they let him walk.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
dumb idea letting him walk out.
I,
I think everybody agreed that was dumb. It was a
mm-hmm.
rare unifying moment for Rangers fans. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I think the phrase jam is misused. I don't like the phrase because of how it gets twisted to mean grinding along the boards, hitting everything in sight. To me, being tough to play against is more than just the blue collar work. Obviously, blue collar work is the foundation, and you can't have the rest without the blue collar work. But being tough to play against is getting more than the sum of your parts out of the roster. That's why the Rangers teams of the last 5 years have failed, is they were never more than the sum of their pieces. And that's why their ceiling was the conference final. You knew what they were, you knew what they were going to bring, and that was that. Florida, on the other hand, yes, they have Matt Kachuk, but from a pure skill on paper standpoint, pure skill, the Rangers were better on paper in 23-24. But Florida was much more difficult to play against, not because they hit, not because they were digging into corners. It's because they knew how the system was supposed to run and they knew where everybody was going to be. It's cliche to quote Miracle and say, the Soviet team, they just threw it to open ice and they knew where they were going to be because they've been playing together for so long. That's the generic quote. But it kind of applies to Florida and a little bit to Carolina too, where they get so much out of their roster because they're all buying in. They know what they're supposed to do, they know what their roles are. Jam to me is a mentality, not an on ice skill. And the Rangers' jam is knowing their roles, executing their roles, and actually giving a shit and buying into Sully's system. If they do that, then they have enough jam. If they don't, then it doesn't matter who they add, the jam won't be there.
Right. And I'll just comment quickly. You know, it's not like the Rangers didn't have anybody that was quote unquote tough. They have a lot of big bodies on that team. One of the things that people would say about the Rangers is that they were soft in terms of their size. That is absolutely not correct at all. Jacob Trouba is a big dude, not tall, but he's a big dude. Mika Zibanejad is about the same size as Alex Barkov. Panarin is not a small guy. Cooley is
They
not.
play small.
They play small, but they're physically not small.
Yeah. And there's a huge
Just
difference there. Matt
right.
Zuccarello plays huge, and he's a legal midget in 48 states. I kid. I also butchered the quote from Ocean's 12.
Yeah, I know.
It's a legal
what
midget in
you're talking
38
about.
states. Yeah, but I'm a
Yeah,
giant in the other 28,
yeah,
26.
the 26. Yeah,
Yeah, I butchered
which
the
he,
quote.
which he's a free agent, by the way. Just so you know, I wouldn't mind on a cheap deal. But
Daniel
that's another.
Ocean.
No, Matt Zuccarello.
I'm kidding.
I know, I
Jesus.
know, I know, I know you are. I have to stir you up at some point. But just to finish the point real quick is, so I think though with a guy like Sullivan, once, and I think this team has the capability to do so because we've seen this team come together before. It's a very similar group of people. I think JT Miller brings a little bit more of a unified voice into the team. Vincent Trocheck brings a little bit more of a unified voice to the team. I think the guys, I'm not trying to talk bad about them, but I think Kreider and Miller or Keandre Miller kind of were, a bit on the, different side of things. So I think this is a better sort of atmosphere for these guys to buy in because they have so much talent. How can you not? But anyways, next question. This comes from AV Sucks. I love this. By the way, I just want to say to the commenters, I do read your comments. Some of you guys have called me crazy personally. I appreciate that. I appreciate that you read the stuff that we put out. Please continue to keep calling me crazy and contributing to the website because we love it and we thank you. I love this username, AV Sucks. And he says, "Thanks, Dave. Will Bread be traded at the deadline?" They seem to address it to you. They don't address it to Rob or myself.
Yeah, so good call out on that. Guys, it's the three of us, it's not me. We all play big roles in doing this, and quite frankly, without Rob and JL, we wouldn't have a pod because there is no way I'd be doing this without them. I don't have the ability or wherewithal or time to be able to schedule it, produce it, get all this stuff up. So it's JL and Rob are the heart of the pod. I just show up when they tell me to. So to answer the question, will he be traded at the deadline? No, he's going to be re-signed.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't
I,
see the ring unless they come out looking like last year's team. I can't
yeah,
see the Rangers. Panarin's going to take a sweetheart deal. He's going to be here. Just I know that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. It's not
yeah,
personally what I would like to do.
same.
It's what I believe Drury will do. And I think we have to add that caveat to a lot of things, including Taylor Radish. It's not what I would do,
It's what
it's what the
Drury will
Rangers are
do.
doing.
Right. All right. This next question comes from Blue Shirts. And they write, should Perot start the season in Hartford
Nope.
since rushing?
Sorry.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Well, just
No,
bury
no,
the
no.
lead on
Continue.
Bury the lead on that one, dude. Since rushing Laugh and Kako into the big club with low minutes had subpar results, do you guys think it would be better for Perot to fill out his frame and tighten up his skating with top line time on ice and power play one time in Hartford until he earns and forces a call up? Good question.
That's a good question. Short answer, obviously. Oh, he should Pro start the season in Hartford. Yes, yes, he
Yes.
should start it in Hartford. Sorry, sleep. Anyway, should he start the season in Hartford? Absolutely yes. Learn from more Kako than Lafreniere. I think Lafreniere is more of a usage issue.
Yeah.
Um, Perot is the real deal. There is no reason to rush him when you still need to see what Ackman has. Ackman is the next prospect to get pruned if he doesn't take that next step. You have to see what he has. Let Perot start in Hartford. Let him get a little bit more adjusted to the game. And let him do the Ryan McDonough thing. Come up in December, January, play 40 games, and establish yourself as a top of the lineup player.
Right. I think, yeah, I agree 100%. I think Perot ideally should get time in Hartford. Obviously, he's jumping. He did play in the NHL, so he did get his feet wet. But I think though for a longer term sort of now this all depends on how his camp is. If his camp is to where you have to put him on the team, then by all means, But I think with the guy like Perot's skill set, with just his vision and creativity, it requires a lot of strength. And although there are reports that said that he did bulk up over the offseason, as did Berard and as did Rempe, as it was reported today. Um, I think though it would be good for him to just kind of experiment because if you go from college to the NHL, depending on the type of player that you are, it depends on sort of your size and how you can adjust and acclimate. Because this is the thing I said about Perot when it came to just how he looked in the games that I attended at the end of the season and how he looked. Um, Definitely the creativity was there. That's without a doubt. Even he's very good in tight areas. He knows where everybody is at. There was, and again, I say this every time, and I'll mention it again until the season starts. There was one play in particular. I think he was up near the boards, near the point, near the dot, and he made a dime of a pass down low to the corner of the net where I think Lafreniere missed a tap in from Perot. And if all Lafreniere had to do was tap it past the goaltender, and I would have made $150. But you know, the knock on him is just his size. And you could see him getting overwhelmed by a lot of the bigger bodies in the NHL, even though they weren't as fleet of foot. They were, they were doing, you know, they weren't doing him any service in terms of, you know, they were just stopping him. And that's the same indictment that I had on Brennan Othman when he came up in camp. I want to say 2 years ago. He had a great camp. He scored a few goals, looked great on the ice, but you blew a feather on him and he would fall over. And that's the thing, at least with Othman's game too, is that he is a rough and tumble, I'm going to get into the dirty areas kind of guy. And you don't want a guy like that to get pushed over quickly because then you lose the puck. So yes, I agree. Perot should start the season in Hartford. Let him dilly-dally around first line, power play one, top line minutes. Let him get adjusted to the tougher game where you have a lot of guys who are NHLers but are playing in the AHL, who are bigger, who he can kind of find his way through, navigate around the rink, the type of surface with the bigger type of players. And then once he's acclimated and killing it, then you do what you said, Dave, and call him up with about 40 games remaining if there's a spot available, and just kind of let him ride. Um, this next question comes from Hook, and they write, I see a whole host of different personalities on this team, from clownish, Panarin and Lafreniere, to very serious and tense, JT Miller, Vincent Trocheck, Enigmas, Mika, Fox. Don't agree with that.
I don't agree with
Impressionable,
that.
all of the youngsters. Okay. Middle of the road, Cooley. I wouldn't say Cooley's middle of the road, but I understand what they're trying to say. How does Sully make it all work and get everyone working towards a common goal?
Oh Jesus!
I get the question, by the way. Although I
I
think
get the question,
some
and
of those
it
labels are a bit not true,
yeah.
but I could see why you would think that though, which is fine.
I don't agree with the labels, but I get the question.
Okay.
So this is the job of a head coach. It's to get the personalities to buy in, and you change your message for each specific player. You can't have the same message across the board. It doesn't work, especially with the new or the newer age players, the younger millennials, the older Gen Zs that are starting to become leaders on teams. You can't use a Mike Babcock hard ass approach on everybody. It doesn't work. You can't have a Gerard Gallant laissez faire approach to everybody because it doesn't work. I think a good mix of personalities is great. You can't have all clowns. You can't have everybody who's serious. That's the same trap you'd fall into by having 100% skill guys versus 100% grit guys. It doesn't work. You got to have that nice blend. So I don't think the personalities are the issue. I think it's just finding the right message and getting through to everybody. And that's the hardest part of his job, of Sully's job. If you think about any good boss or leader in the professional world, in the corporate, not even corporate, blue collar, still corporate, all of it. When you're working, you have a boss and you have a manager. The boss is the one that says, do what I do when I tell you to do it. And the manager works with you on a career plan. What do you want to do? How do you want to do it? How do we get there? This is what I need from you, and this is what you need from me. So let's make this work. That is a manager. That is what Sully needs to be. And from all intents and purposes, that's what he has been. Some people need the tough love. Some people need a little bit more of hand holding through it all. You recognize the personalities and you go from there. It's less hockey, more personality management.
So I think this is something that Peter Laviolette was good at the start of his tenure. Obviously, he was only here for 2 seasons, but he was very good at finding ways to get the most out of people, and that's the sign of a good leader. The issue with last season is, I think, is still considered an anomaly in
It
terms of
is
just
an
how
anomaly.
things go, and it's unfortunate that, Laviolette was the guy that was seen as sort of the harbinger of it to a degree. 'Cause he was the one that had to pay. But Laviolette was very good at that, and reading some of the stuff that, at least when they were winning, the things that he was doing to kind of keep the locker room together, um, is key. You know, look, we can talk about, you know, this much skill this team can possess, but Peter Laviolette was a huge factor in why the team was so good winning the President's Trophy that year. Let's not take that away. What happened last year again is an anomaly. But again, just to talk about Sully, what should Sully do? Sully should do the same thing, is find a way to speak to these players. And and I guess to his credit, and also to John Tortorella's credit too, because they're cut from the same cloth. You know, slightly different styles on certain things, but one of the reasons why John Tortorella has had a long shelf life is the fact that he's been able to adjust. Now, the issue with Tortorella back in the day, and this was also something that I guess Sullivan was learning with, at least with the Rangers and when he was an assistant with the Canucks, and even in his first head coach tenure with the Bruins, is that the tactics that you deploy at some time are not going to work in another time. You can have consistent sort of ideals, but you have to adjust as a coach, as adapt or die. And Sullivan definitely got that from Tortorella, that sort of, style in terms of adapting. And that's part of the big reason why those Pittsburgh Penguins teams are so good. And then before anyone says, oh, well, they had Crosby and Malkin, that's fine. I get that. But you also have to remember the time they hired Sullivan, they still had Malkin, Crosby, Letang. They had all those guys there, but they were failing. Dan Bilesma, I think it was this Mike Johnson, or I can't remember his name, but they had another coach after Dan Bilesma, and it didn't work. It really didn't work. And it was pretty much the same management that was putting together the teams. But Mike Sullivan came and provided a stabilized sort of personality. And look, I'll say this. I know a lot of this because, I used to go to Pittsburgh a lot, for obvious reasons if you couldn't put two and two together. And so I talked to a lot of people out there. I listened to their sports radio, which is way different than it is here. But I kind of got a sense of what Sullivan was able to bring. Obviously, having a guy like Crosby and Malkin, that's key. I mean, it's two of the greatest players of all time. That's going to certainly help. But he was able to get the best out of even the worst quote unquote player on the team. It's all about messaging. It's all about what different types of players can do certain things. And I think Sullivan is very good at identifying that because he was able to get the best out of did anyone know? I mean, I'm not done trying to knock the guy, but did anyone really know who Brian Rust was before he started out with the Penguins? Like, no.
Nope.
Guys like Danton Heinen, you know, uh, just to name a few that are popping off my head right now. But
Jake Gensel was a third-round pick.
Jake Gensel, there's the big one. So I think what Sully needs to do is just kind of identify what everybody is good at. And obviously, like you talked about that, and I hate to use this word, but that synergy with your boss, it's important though. Because if you're able to have a decent relationship with your GM, then in turn that fosters a good relationship that trickles down to the rest of the team. I think Drury has had an issue with keeping a positive relationship with his coaches. I think Laviolette wanted to do one thing and Drury wanted to do another. And I think that kind of contributed to a lot of what happened. But with Sullivan, this is his guy. Like we knew that from the minute Drury became GM, this was who he wanted. So I think that helps a lot in terms of quieting the outside noise and allowing your coach to do the job he needs to, and that's getting everybody on the same page and identifying what player does well in what moment. All right.
So I got a question for you because Jake Gensel came up, and I was curious about this.
Okay.
He was a third-round pick, number 77 overall in the 2023 draft. The Rangers had 2 picks before Gensel was selected. Who were they? I'll give you a hint. One was a bust, and one is a top of the lineup player.
You said 23?
He was 2013.
Oh no, 2013.
Two players were taken before the Rangers had 2 picks before Gensel was taken.
I'm gonna get this wrong. 2013. You said one is a top line player and the other one's a bust. So I'm going to assume one of those is Pavel Buchnevich.
Yes, and he was taken two selections before Gensel.
And the other one, who was it? Was it a forward or defenseman?
Forward.
Oh, jeez. Center or wing?
Wing.
Oh man.
Doesn't really matter though. He was taken one pick before Brett Pesce.
You said he was a bust?
A complete bust.
Did he ever play for the Rangers, this player?
No. He played for the Wolfpack for 3 seasons.
Oh man.
Adam Tambellini.
Adam Tambellini. I know who that is.
So the Rangers took Tambellini 1 pick before Brett Pesce.
Oh my gosh.
There's a whole, and funny enough, they took Duclair at 80. 2 picks ahead of Carter Verhaeghe.
Oh my gosh. Goodness gracious. It's not even that Tambellini was in.
No, they were fine picks at the time, and the Rangers hit on 2 of them, just not for their own team.
Oh, jeez. Well, I mean, they did reap the benefits of Buchnevich for some time, so I can't really get them on that.
Yeah, fair.
All right.
Anyway, moving on.
All right, next question. This comes from Captain Jack. Captain Jack writes, in 3 words or less, what do each of you guys want the tone to be for this team starting in training camp? Please give your 3 words, then expand on your thoughts. Thanks.
God, you're asking me to do 3 words? When was the last time I was ever concise with anything on this pod?
Make his brain hurt.
My brain hurts already. I have to talk to you for an hour. You walked into that, dude. You walked into that.
I did.
3 words or less? 1 word. 1 word. Passion. Actually fucking care this year. That's my expansion too. That's it.
Yeah, wow. You're asking me to limit myself. All I do is talk. In 3 words, play for. Oh gosh, I was gonna do 4 words.
Play for teammates is what you're going for.
Play for teammates, yeah. Play for teammates, pretty much. And the reason why I say that is because every single Rangers team that we've seen that's done very well, even if they weren't the greatest of teams, they were very close knit. Now, I'm not saying that they have to be best friends on and off the ice, but I think people tend to downplay and I'm not saying you, Captain Jack, I'm just saying in general, that people tend to downplay team chemistry as a real thing. It's one of the you mentioned it earlier. It's one of the reasons why you can't have a team full of skill. I mean, the Colorado Avalanche in 2004 learned that the hard way. Um, so, you know, as long as everybody is copacetic and cool with each other and understands that you work to a common goal and that the distractions in the past are behind, come together as a unit. Prove to us that you are worth paying the entrance fee at Madison Square Garden. Prove to me that you guys put in the work at practice, that you listen to the coach, that you play for each other. Look, I'm a terrible basketball player, but I play in a rec basketball league, right? I am the worst basketball player known to man. I could play defense to a degree, but I ain't going to get you 5, 10 points a game. That being said, though, like, I play with my teammates. I look out for them. Granted, it's only one day a week, but I'm friends with these guys. So I try to give my best so that they give their best and we work for the greater good. That's what I want them to do, is play for teammates, because that's something that they were missing last year.
I like
So,
that.
all right. So now
The
we have
greatest question ever asked of us.
okay. Before we discuss this question, this really comes from I'm looking at it now. I can't stop laughing. Um, this comes from the fact this all basically kind of started when we had some time to kill at the end of a podcast, and you probably, if you're a listener, you'll know what I'm talking about. Where basically Dave has really bad food takes.
Dave has
Right?
amazing food tastes. It's not my
No,
fault. Your palate is
no,
unsophisticated.
no, that you are so wrong, little man. Um,
Little
so
man,
I mean, I am taller than you, so um,
congratulate as okay. We've established height isn't everything. Okay,
hey,
congratulations.
that,
You are
that's
genetically taller than me. That's all you got.
that is fair. Yes, you are right. So, Two Line Passes asked us the greatest question, and then it was the follow-up that just makes this even better. Two Line Passes asked us, if you teabag someone with a nut allergy, is it attempted murder? To which Joe S. cleverly replies, are you aware of said nut allergy?
I don't even know what to say to this. These are the
What?
greatest. This is the greatest question and follow up I have ever seen.
This is
And
fantastic.
I've had this site for 17 years now. I have never seen something like this come up before. And I don't even know how to answer this other than just you both deserve a standing ovation for this. It's
Yes,
the
you
greatest,
yes.
it's amazing.
Like, this sounds like something I'd say to my friends at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
When
He
you've been
said,
drinking all night.
yeah. So, okay, if you teabag someone with a nut allergy, is it attempted murder? I genuinely want to answer the question. I just don't know how.
Okay, so you know what? We'll go 5 words, 2 words or less. So you got
No,
it's a yes or a no.
I'm not doing that. I can't.
Okay, so I'll start then because I have a general answer. I'm
Okay.
gonna go with no because technically speaking, the allergy is a tree nut allergy. And last I checked, your nuts are not grown on trees. So it's not attempted murder.
Well, now the follow the well thing is
How are you
follow up
aware of
though,
said nut
are
allergy?
you
So
aware?
are there, is there something that I'm missing? Did Treebeard from Lord of the Rings, like, did you get stuck under there for a little too long?
Well,
Like, how do you know that? Like,
w-
what prompts such a question?
well, the thing too is that it's also kind of like if you go to a party and there is nut-based stuff and you don't disclose to the person who is catering the food, or if you know the person that's catering the food and you don't tell them that you have a nut allergy, it's not necessarily the caterer or the person you know that is liable because you didn't disclose that information, unless you willingly don't eat the things that have the nuts in it, you know. But at the same time though, if you're if you're teabagging somebody, then you really put yourself in a precarious situation, because then this I'm trying to logically figure out in what social setting is somebody going to teabag somebody and then have the wherewithal to think that maybe I might actually kill this person. Because that is a very dangerous situation here. This is this
I don't even know what I'm done. I can't. There is nothing that is topping that.
So if the two-line passes, awesome question. Joe S. An even more perfect follow-up to a perfect question. I really want to dive into this, but we're getting to the end of the podcast. So
I
I
think we just ended on that. There's nothing
I
else we can do
I
that can
what can
make
you
the ending better, other than
say?
just I.
I mean, I guess your part of your post is right though. It says, we can always find something to talk about. Clearly.
We really
And
can find anything to talk about. Like, if you teabag somebody with a nut allergy, is it attempted murder? And how do you even know of said allergy?
I think I'm gonna have to frame that and put it in my office and just have it there, no context. But anyways, thank you guys for giving us a really good laugh. We appreciate that. Uh, and please, uh, everyone listening, please continue to give us your questions, their thoughts, even as absurd as they are. We're pretty unserious guys to a degree. We'll try to answer it to the best of our ability. But thank you. Send us on Blue Sky, send us questions on Twitter. Thank you to everyone who did. And I think that's a wrap, Dave. Anything else you want to say before we sign off for the night?
No, I am good. I am. This question is going to stay in my brain for the rest of my life.
Hey, you never know. Maybe somebody ends up topping that. Who knows? It'll be tough, but who knows?
I don't know. I don't. I can't see anybody topping that. I guess now that's a challenge for you guys.
I guess so. Give us your creativity. See how I think we just opened the floodgates to something, but I'm more than happy to
I
delve
I
into it.
love it. I'm good with it.
Yeah, me too. All right. Well, thank you everybody for taking the time out to listen to Live from the Blue Seats. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Read the stuff we put out on the blog. Even though it's summer, we still have content that's come out. Thank you to the Patreon subscribers. You guys are awesome. And commenters, again, thank you very much. And we'll see you here next week. Hopefully, Rob will be back from his family gathering. If not, we'll be here, and all three of us will be here. And now I'm just kind of rambling on.
Yeah,
All
you're
right.
still talking.
Thanks for listening to Live from the Blue Seats. We'll see you next week. Let's go, Rangers.